When you're not around, her world doesn't just pause, it changes. The silence you leave behind begins to whisper things she doesn't want to hear. Every unanswered message starts to carry weight. Every delayed response feels like distance growing. It's not that she expects constant attention or endless validation, but your quietness plants seeds of doubt that start to grow roots in her mind. She wonders if your silence means you're pulling away, if your calmness is indifference, if your absence is a reflection of her worth. And no matter how strong she seems, no matter how much she tells herself not to overthink, her thoughts keep circling back to one question: why does it feel like I'm losing him without a goodbye? She tries to distract herself. She throws herself into her work, her friends, her hobbies, anything to keep her mind from wandering back to you. But the heart doesn't understand distractions, it only understands connection. And when that connection suddenly feels one-sided, the mind becomes its own enemy. She replays your last conversation, the tone in your voice, the look in your eyes. She analyzes every small detail, trying to decode meaning where maybe there was none. But in her heart, silence isn't neutral, it's a message. And the longer it lasts, the louder it becomes. What you see as space, she feels as emotional distance. You might think you're giving her room to breathe, but she interprets that space as detachment. She starts to wonder if you've found peace in her absence, or worse, if someone else has your attention now. Those thoughts cut deeper than any argument ever could, because silence doesn't just make her miss you, it makes her question herself. She starts to doubt her importance, her value, even her intuition. And when a woman starts questioning her intuition, she's not just losing trust in you, she's losing trust in herself. There's a storm that brews inside her mind when communication fades. On the outside, she may look calm, maybe even unaffected. But on the inside, every unanswered question echoes like thunder. She remembers the times you made her feel seen, the way your presence used to ground her. And now, your absence feels like standing in the middle of that same storm with no shelter. She keeps asking herself if she did something wrong, if she cared too much, if she pushed too hard. Those thoughts don't just hurt, they haunt her. Because when a woman feels unseen, her love doesn't just fade, it breaks in silence. But here's what most don't realize. Her reaction to your silence isn't about control or insecurity. It's about the emotional connection she once felt deeply and suddenly can't find anymore. When that emotional thread snaps, her heart starts to protect itself. What she really wanted was reassurance, not attention, effort, not perfection, presence, not promises. She wanted to know that your silence wasn't her fault, that your distance didn't mean disinterest. But when those answers never come, her mind fills the blanks with fears that cut deeper than words ever could. And that's when something inside her begins to shift. The same silence that once made her anxious starts to make her numb. The same questions that once kept her up at night start to lose meaning. Because after all the overthinking, all the waiting, all the emotional exhaustion, she eventually realizes that peace isn't found in chasing clarity from someone who chooses silence. It's found in accepting that some connections fade, not because she wasn't enough, but because she finally understood that she was never meant to beg for presence that should have been freely given. When you're not around, she tells herself she's fine, that she doesn't need you, that she's stronger than her emotions, that your silence doesn't affect her. But deep down, that's the biggest lie she tells herself. Because while she may not show it, she feels the void you've left behind. It's not about missing constant messages or phone calls. It's about missing the sense of safety your presence brought. When you were around, she didn't have to question where she stood. Now, every quiet moment becomes a battlefield between what she feels and what she's trying to convince herself to believe. She starts to replay moments, not because she's clinging to the past, but because she's searching for answers that never came. She wonders if you noticed the way her energy shifted before things changed, if you caught the hesitation in her voice when she said she was okay, if you knew that behind her smile there was confusion, fear, and a longing she never dared to show. The silence you left behind becomes more than an absence. It turns into a mirror, forcing her to face emotions she's been running from. She begins to question whether you ever really cared, or if she just imagined the connection you both shared. You see, when you go silent, it doesn't just make her wonder about you. It makes her wonder about herself. She starts to doubt her worth, her choices, her intuition. Every unanswered message feels like proof that maybe she expected too much. Every day that passes without hearing from you feels like another confirmation that she gave her heart to someone who couldn't value it. And yet, part of her still holds on, not because she's weak, but because deep down, love doesn't switch off easily. Even when logic says to move on, her heart lingers in the space between what was and what could have been. What truly shocks her isn't your silence itself, it's what that silence reveals. It shows her how much emotional power you had without even saying a word. It shows her how much she cared, how deeply she felt, and how much she tried to hold on to something that was slowly slipping away. And at the same time, it shows her something else, something she never expected to learn through heartbreak, that her strength doesn't come from being needed, but from realizing she can survive, even when the person she once depended on is no longer there. In those quiet hours when her thoughts are loudest, she'll come to see that your silence wasn't a punishment, but a revelation. It exposed every hidden truth she refused to face, that love shouldn't feel like guessing, that peace shouldn't feel like waiting, and that sometimes losing someone who can be so silent about you is the loudest blessing she could ever receive. When you're not around, she begins to question everything she thought she understood about you and about herself. She starts to wonder if what you both shared was ever real, or if it was just a chapter she read too deeply into while you were simply passing time. It's in that silence where her mind becomes her greatest enemy, replaying every conversation, every subtle shift in your tone, every unanswered text, every time she thought you were pulling away. The smallest details she once ignored now feel like clues in a mystery she's desperate to solve. Did you stop caring long before she realized it? Were you ever really there emotionally? Or was she just trying to see love where it wasn't fully given? Her mind spirals through all the what-ifs. What if she had been more patient? What if she hadn't argued that night? What if she had just let you go sooner, instead of fighting for something that may have already been slipping away? Each question digs deeper, not to find fault in you, but in herself. Because when someone she once felt so connected to disappears into silence, the first instinct isn't anger. It's self-doubt. She wonders if she wasn't enough to make you stay, or if her love was something you simply grew tired of. And the more she tries to silence those thoughts, the louder they become. But beneath all that confusion, something begins to shift. She starts to realize that maybe the silence isn't about her at all. Maybe it's not a reflection of her worth, but a reflection of your inability to face what you lost. She begins to see that your silence might not be strength, it might be avoidance. Because while she's out there facing the truth, processing the pain, and finding herself again, you're sitting with the same quiet that's starting to eat away at her. Except now it's working on you too. That realization doesn't come easily, but it comes with time, the kind of time that only distance and stillness can teach. And as those questions swirl around in her mind, they slowly start to lose their power, because eventually she gets tired of questioning, tired of doubting, tired of replaying moments that can't be changed. She begins to accept that the answers she's been searching for won't come from you, they'll come from within. That's when her strength returns quietly, the same way your silence arrived. She stops needing your validation, your explanation, your attention. She starts finding peace in her own company, realizing that no matter how much she thought she needed you, she can still stand tall without you. And that's when the shift truly happens. The moment she stops trying to understand why you disappeared is the moment she reclaims her power. The very silence that once haunted her becomes her greatest teacher, showing her that real peace isn't found in getting answers from someone else, but in learning how to live without needing them. When you're not around, she starts to notice the empty spaces you used to fill, not just the physical ones, but the emotional ones too. The late night conversations that used to stretch for hours are replaced by silence. The texts that once came instantly now stay unsent. The laughter that used to echo between you is now just a faint memory she tries not to replay. At first, she tells herself it doesn't matter, that she's fine, that life goes on. But deep down, she feels that quiet ache, the kind that doesn't scream, but whispers constantly, because no matter how much she tries to distract herself, she can't deny that something inside her feels off balance without you there. Her mind starts to replay the way things used to be, not because she wants to live in the past, but because her heart hasn't fully caught up to the present. She remembers your energy, your tone, the way you looked at her when you meant what you said. Those memories come in waves, and every time she thinks she's done with them, another one surfaces. She wonders if you still think about her too, if those small moments that meant everything to her ever meant anything to you. She questions if you miss her voice the way she misses yours, or if your silence means she's already been replaced. That's the power of absence. It makes her imagination work overtime. But as the days turn into weeks, something subtle begins to change. The same silence that once hurt starts to reveal truth. She begins to realize that your absence isn't something to chase or fix. It's something to learn from. She starts to see that if you truly valued her presence, she wouldn't have to wonder about your effort. If you wanted to stay, you would have. If you cared, you would have shown it. And that clarity hurts at first, but it also brings a strange kind of peace. Because the silence she once feared starts to become her space to grow. Slowly, she begins to fill that space with herself, her thoughts, her goals, her dreams that she once put on hold to make space for you. She starts spending time rediscovering the parts of herself that got lost while trying to love you. And that's when something powerful happens. She begins to understand that her worth was never tied to your attention, that your silence was never about her inadequacy. It was about your inability to appreciate what she brought into your life. And while you may think she's still thinking about you the way she used to, the truth is the more she heals, the less power you hold. Your silence may have shaken her at first, but in the end, it becomes the very thing that sets her free. When you're not around, her mind begins to wander into questions she never wanted to ask, questions that reveal just how deeply she's still tied to what you once had. She wonders if you've moved on, if there's someone else taking up your time, hearing your laughter, feeling your warmth. The thought stings, but she doesn't let it show. Instead, she hides behind the same mask she wore the day you walked away, calm, unbothered, in control. But deep down, that calm is just the surface of a storm she's trying to manage. She starts to question herself, asking what she could have done differently, what she missed where things changed. Every detail of your last conversation plays in her mind like a broken record. She replays your tone, your pauses, your silence. Because to her, that silence has become louder than any words you ever spoke. It's during this time that she starts to wrestle with guilt and pride all at once. Part of her wants to reach out, just to know where things stand, but another part, The part that remembers how much she gave without getting the same in return tells her to stay quiet. That inner conflict eats away at her because the truth is, she misses you, but she doesn't want to be the only one who feels that way. She doesn't want to be the one chasing something that doesn't chase her back. So she holds her silence even though it hurts, hoping that maybe you'll be the one to break it. What she doesn't realize, though, is that her silence is slowly beginning to change how she feels about you. The more she sits with her thoughts, the more she begins to see patterns, the times you withdrew, the moments you made her feel unseen, the excuses that sounded like care but were really just avoidance. That realization doesn't happen overnight, but when it does, it hits her deeply. She begins to see that your absence isn't a punishment anymore, it's clarity. She starts to recognize that if she has to question her value in your life, then maybe it's not her loss at all. And yet, in the quiet, she still wonders. She wonders if you ever stop to think about her when you're alone, if her name still crosses your mind when a song plays that once belonged to both of you, if you ever look back and feel that same ache she tries so hard to hide. Those thoughts come and go, but they always carry the same truth, that even though she's trying to move on, part of her still wants to be remembered. Because no matter how strong she acts, she's human, and silence, no matter how powerful, always leaves a space where love once lived. And that's when she realizes maybe it's not her job to fill that space anymore. There comes a point when the silence doesn't just make her miss you, it forces her to confront the truth she's been avoiding. At first, she thought you were the one who disappeared, the one who left her with unanswered questions and empty space. But as time goes on, she begins to realize that silence works both ways. It becomes a mirror. It reflects back everything she refused to see when emotions were loud and love was blind. In the stillness, she's no longer distracted by your messages, your energy, your presence. Instead, she's left alone with the echoes of her own thoughts. And those thoughts, though painful, begin to open her eyes. She starts to notice how peaceful it feels to not chase answers, how calm it is to wake up and not check her phone for your name. The confusion that once consumed her begins to lose its power. She still wonders, of course, but it's different now. Her questions aren't coming from desperation anymore, they come from understanding. She's realizing that maybe your silence isn't rejection, maybe it's revelation. It shows her what life looks like without the constant push and pull. It reminds her of her own worth, that she doesn't have to earn someone's effort or beg for attention. The quiet becomes a teacher, and in that lesson, she starts to rebuild her sense of self. But here's the irony. The moment she starts to find peace in your absence is often the moment you begin to feel her absence too. You start to sense the emotional space she's created. The energy you once took for granted no longer circles around you. That silence, which once seemed like power in your hands, now turns against you, because silence, when it's chosen from strength, becomes louder than any words could ever be. And while you're thinking she's still wondering about you, she's slowly learning to stop wondering altogether. She begins to fill that silence with things that bring her back to life. Laughter with friends, new dreams, rediscovered passions. The same silence that once haunted her becomes her freedom. It's no longer about you, it's about her growth. It's about realizing that sometimes walking away isn't about punishment or pride, it's about peace. And the peace she finds is what truly transforms her. And that's the part that shocks you the most the day you see her again, and realize she's not the same woman who needed your presence to feel complete. She's the one who learned to love her own silence, the one who grew stronger in the space where you once stood. You thought she'd always be there waiting, but the truth is, her silence didn't just change her. It revealed who she was all along. And in the end, that's when the silence finally speaks the loudest.